Hello investors, and welcome to another video episode where we learn how to become better, smarter investors with real estate, and we essentially protect ourselves from falling into all kinds of loopholes that can exist. Today I'm going to be doing things a little differently, and I have a friend and a colleague here with me today who is going to join me in a discussion, because I promised her that it was going to be a discussion and not necessarily an interview, where we will talk about what it is, the steps that you have to take to ensuring that you are protecting and securing your property even after you've bought it. So if you've been following this due diligence series, you would notice that I talked about the things that you have to do when you're buying a property, things that you do before you buy a property, and all of that. But now, because we know that a lot of us have already bought property, so chances are that a number of us may have loopholes, gaps that we need to be able to fill. And I thought that that would be a very, very intriguing decision and helpful discussion for all of you to be able to learn and benefit from. So today I'm going to be joined by Tosin. I call her Tosin. A lot of you who probably know her would know her as the Niger property lawyer and Niger business lawyer. And she has literally helped, I think her track record is what? You've saved about 100 million.
Yes, and counting.
And counting. Yes, CC, 100 million and counting. She also has helped a good number and even some of our celebrities to acquire, vet their own property investments. I appreciate where it is that you've gotten to as a lawyer, so just take a few minutes to even just tell the viewers, people who are watching this video, tell them about you, tell them about what it is that you do, tell them about what you believe about, how real estate works from a professional perspective. Just share a bit about yourself. I'm sure you can introduce yourself so much better.
Yes, thank you, Lerato. I'm Tosin Omotosho, and I'm the lead counsel at Charis Legal Practice. So Charis Legal Practice is a Lagos-based real estate and business law firm, and we rank #1 on Google for real estate law firm in Lagos. So let me tell you a little story. When I was growing up, when I decided I wanted to become a lawyer, I didn't have real estate in mind. I didn't have all what I'm doing now wasn't part of the plan. I just wanted to work in one of the top law firms and basically do advisory. But as they always say, everything changed. I had to go work in a law firm. So I worked with Adegboruwa, SAN and Co. for about 7 years before setting up Charis Legal Practice. And whilst I was there, I was counsel in a lot of litigation cases. So I was going to court. On the average, every week, I would go to court at least twice a week. And most of them were real estate cases. And so at that stage, it brought me to a realization that a lot of people were doing real estate, but they didn't know how to go about it, because when we look through those cases, we see a lot of negligence, a lot of mistakes. And I thought to myself, I don't think people would do this thing if they knew better. And that is why a very important part of our strategy as Charis Legal Practice is education. So we put out a lot of content on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on our website to educate people who want to go into real estate and say, these are the things you should look at before you buy real estate, after you've bought, during the process of buying. It's very important. So real estate is like jollof rice. Yes. And I love that analogy because we love jollof rice. Who doesn't love jollof rice?
Absolutely.
But jollof rice is made up of so many ingredients. Yeah. So you can't go into real estate and it's just like saying I want to jollof rice, but it's only rice I need. We all know that the results will not be what we want. We're not getting jollof rice. We're getting something else. So it's the same way with real estate. There are many angles to real estate. There's the legal side, there's the finance side, the number side, there's the aesthetic side, there's the engineering side. Like, talk about it. There are so many professionals you need to work with when you are going into real estate. And that's why I'm honored to be here today to talk about one of my favorite topics that I love to talk about. So thank you once again, and make sure you continue watching because this discussion is going to get very interesting and you don't want to miss any part of it.
Absolutely. Like, I already feel like it is so interesting already because a lot of the things that you've done have literally opened the grounds So let's start off from what it is that you talked about, the fact that there are various components to investing in real estate. Now, you are a lawyer. You've gone through the different components because you are also an investor, right? But today we want to talk about the things that matter from a due diligence perspective. After people have bought a property, like what are the ways that they can protect their property? So you as a lawyer are now going to help to say, why is it that people even need to be able to protect their property in the first place before we even start to say, okay, this is what you should do and this is this. So let's just start from the why, because just like what you said, a big part of what you do at Charis Legal is education. It's a big part of what I do. It's the reason why I do a whole lot of enlightenment and education, because if I sell you a property, you probably don't even know why you're buying that property. And if I did not necessarily have your interest at heart, which, let's be honest, we can't know everybody's interest through and through. But if you as the investor understand the different facets that come into it, then you would better be able to make a decision and say, oh, I choose this, I choose that. I can't choose for you. I'm going to put options on the table, right?
Yes.
So please, let's start from why it is that people need to think about protecting their properties legally, so that we can actually ensure that they are invested in real estate.
Okay, so number one is real estate is expensive. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
So I expect that if you're putting money, and it's hard-earned money, into real estate, you really want to be sure of what you're doing. You want to be sure that this property is yours. You want to be sure that whatever reason you're going into real estate for, whatever benefits you want, you are actually going to get it. And trust me, if you didn't get it right from the beginning, in the long run, it's always almost always disastrous. All right. So it's very important that number one, it's a type of asset that is expensive. Now, number two, real estate is peculiar. So we are in a building, for instance. We can leave when we're done. We leave this place and we go. Someone else can come tomorrow. And with the way real estate is what makes it prone to a lot of scams, a lot of issues, because it's fixed. You can't carry it.
Yeah.
If I buy any type of asset, for instance, maybe I buy a car. Okay, is a car an asset?
For some people, that's a discussion for another day.
For another day. So let me use another. Let's say you buy any other type of asset that is tangible, that you own. Once you make payment for it, you take it along with you, and that's it. So it will be difficult for someone to come collect it from you. But real estate is not like that. So if you buy a house, for instance, at in Lekki Phase 1, after you've finished closing and everything, if you don't move in immediately, you probably lock the house and then you go, or you didn't put in tenants there, and then you go. Someone can come behind you and show another person around the house and say, oh, this is my house. I mean, that's what happens. Why people will say, oh, I bought this land. And I discovered 7 more people. It was sold to 7 more people. And you're really wondering, like, how on earth did that happen?
Yes.
All right. So that's why it's very important as smart property investors that we know that it's important to protect our interests. It applies both before the transaction, after you've closed, after you've purchased the property, and you continue to make sure that your interests are well protected. And of course, we'll be getting to that in a minute. So those are the 2 reasons why it's very important for you to secure your property.
Absolutely. And I totally agree, because it's a continuous cycle.
Yes.
And I tell people, I say, it's not even after that first level of due diligence. Your due diligence has to continue.
Yes.
And it will keep evolving. The type of due diligence that you start with will not be the type of due diligence that you would continue with when you go. I mean, a typical example would be someone who is oblivious to what the zoning laws become. It's a continuous process.
Definitely.
But if you don't know what it is that you need to do or what it entails, then you're going to just be at a point where you just don't know.
Yes.
So let's just dive into the next question, and that would be, what are the risk factors that an investor who has property that is not necessarily secured stands to face? I mean, people would probably say, oh, I'm not at risk, I'm fine, I bought it, I have my receipt, I have that. But I mean, share and, just walk us through the risk factors that such a person can be prone to.
Okay, so if you don't secure your property legally, you are prone to many risks, and the highest could be totally losing that property. And let me give you an example. So whilst I was in litigation, we had a cooperative come to meet us. I won't give more details than that. But when they had issues with the people they bought property with. And obviously, this is a cooperative, so it's more than one person, a group of people, educated people. But when we looked through the documents that they brought to us, we discovered, oh, you actually don't own this land. You didn't actually buy this land from this family that you said you bought from. What? And I'm talking of a group of, that's the highest. If you watched this in a movie, you'll say, it's a movie. Because, if one person makes a mistake, okay, well, it was just one lone person. But and we're talking of educated people here who went and bought land, who went and paid for land because they didn't buy it. So the process of purchase is different. Who paid for land with nothing to show. So eventually when we looked at it and we assessed it, my principal then told them, just count your losses and move on. There's no point going to court to fight this field, because if you go to court, you're not going to win anything. You're going to pay a lawyer, and at the end of the day, the court is not going to give judgment in your favor. And so that brings us to the fact that, is it really your property? That's the first thing to start from, because I have people who will say they bought property. And to me, because I have a litigation background, when you tell me you buy property, I expect that when I look at whatever you have, it withstands. If you have to go to court, prove it. It's going to stand. If it's not going to stand,
then you didn't buy it.
You're not the owner.
You're not the owner.
Yes, you just
paid for it.
Yes,
you gave somebody money.
You just dashed somebody money. Maybe you can fight the person, they can refund your money to you, and if they refuse to, you can go to court to collect back the money. But of course, we know how our judicial system is. It's going to take a lot of time, and your money has lost value. So the first step is to ensure that property, is it really yours?
Is it really yours?
Yes. And did you buy from the right person? Because you can't give what you don't have. Exactly. So now this is Lerato's laptop. If I just say, oh, Lerato, I carry this laptop and I walk out of this street, you can call the police and they would arrest me lawfully for being in possession of what is not mine. It's the same with real estate. So because I didn't get a consent, the laptop can't be mine. It's the same thing with real estate. You can't give what you don't have. If I'm selling property to you or gifting it to you, because there are various ways you can get property. If I have any issues with my own title, and title refers to ownership, it's going to affect anything I pass to you. So even if I then afterwards sell it to you and do any documents, the root is faulty. And that's it. The property is not legally yours because it's not even legally mine in the first place. So it's very important that the issue of title is very important. You go to courts in Lagos State, go to the lands division, you see the number of cases that are being filed on a daily basis and how long it usually takes. You will think twice and you would understand when I keep repeating and preaching this message and say, do the proper thing when you're buying real estate. It's going to say, I've seen people lose their families because all the money they put it in real estate and they needed to take care of the family. There was a health challenge and everything. They couldn't meet up to that responsibility and the person died. I'm talking of real life issues now. So it's very important that you secure your property. Ensure first that the title must be secure, okay? And then you have to also be sure that you're not buying property that is under any form of legal encumbrance or government acquisition. Like for instance, and we're still going to get to that, for the Third Mainland Bridge. Areas where government acquired. Now, when my parents were building our house, then when we did the search and everything, we discovered that an express was going to pass through the place. So, but we made sure that the land that we bought didn't fall right in the middle of that proposed express. So it took a long time, about 15 years after. So there were people who
got caught up that felt that, it's not coming or it's not going to be in our time.
We have this funny saying of government, the government wants to do something, they won't do it. The next 50 years, they're still saying they will do it. So Lerato, they actually did the road. They did the express.
Okay.
Whole houses were swallowed.
Oh yeah, they will be swallowed. They'll be removed, uprooted, broken down.
You know how?
Literally.
Swallow something like people lost whole houses, duplexes. And I'm just like, okay, I don't want to believe that these people didn't
know.
And they don't have an excuse because it's been on the master plan.
Yeah.
So it's a different case where after you've bought land,
Yeah.
and then the government then decides,
To rezone, or they need to replan,
or they
need to,
maybe for any public purpose. For example, like the Fort Mainland Bridge,
exactly.
maybe schools, hospitals, public infrastructural facilities need to be built. So the Land Use Act empowers the government to acquire the land. But of course, there are ways. If it was something that was decided after you bought your property, you always have a recourse. So you are entitled to compensation and everything. But if at the time you bought the land, it was already on the plan, I'm sorry, you're not going to get anything.
True. Absolutely.
It's sad, but
it's sad, but it's just the truth.
It is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and that's what I tell people all the time. If you already bought it, oh my God.
You know, when you retire, you're like, thank God. You have a house, yes. Maybe you have tenants and everything is just...
Pension plan gone.
Yes.
Literally.
It's not funny at all. It's not funny. So it's not an experience that I would wish on anyone. Yeah. So it's important that we do all these things and we make sure that we check everything that is checkable.
Yeah.
Yes, to avoid... premium tiers.
Premium tiers, I say yes. Okay, so so we've talked about the whole process of like before, the during. Just give us insight. So if there's somebody that is watching this video and the person already has a property that is maybe in an area that is being rezoned for whatever use by the government, what are the things that person must have that would allow them or make them eligible for some form of recourse or compensation in such instances? Like, what are the things that they must have? I'm not going to necessarily talk about what the things that they must really do, because that's a full process that we cannot explain in a session like this. That's absolutely not, because each situation would be different. But what are the things that they must have? Like, so this would literally serve as like a checklist to somebody who is buying land to say, oh, just in case I want to be able to have these for my property because I have already bought it. So what are the things that such a person must have? Okay, so if you've bought property and it's caught up with new zoning laws, for you to be entitled to compensation, you have to be able to prove that you've bought the property and you bought the property before that new zoning law comes into place. Of course, our laws don't have retrospective effect. So that means that if a law is made today, it's not going to apply to situations that happened before the law was passed. So if you can prove that, yes, I bought this land duly, duly on this property, I have all the necessary documents. So, and sometimes not all instances, especially when it comes to land, where you might have documents. So we still have those in the hinterland, in the villages where basically they're holding land under native law and custom. They inherited it from their father. Their father inherited it from the ancestors who traveled across the oceans and the seas to then settle on the land and everything. So the traditional history is part of ways by which people own land, all right? So it could be, you could have documents, or if you're holding under native law and custom, you have this traditional history that shows that, yes, you've been on this land, you duly own this land, and you own it before the law was made, all right? So the Land Use Act is very explicit. And so let me tell you something interesting, Lerata. So when I just started working at Adigboro, I say now, cool. The very first assignment I was given was on something about the Land Use Act. So my boss told me to do research on the Land Use Act. And so it really stuck to me, like, this case is like, okay, so we have statutory rights of occupancy and deemed right of occupancy. So let me break it down. So like the instance I talked about, people in interland villages who hold land under traditional under native law and custom, and who can prove from their traditional history, the Land Use Act does not apply to then dispossess them and say, oh, if you don't have a C of O, it means you don't own land. No. What the Land Use Act simply did was to make sure that we have like a uniform system of owning lands in all over the country. And so, because we want to have a register where I can go to the registry, I can check lands, they made this certificate of occupancy regime where you apply for certificate of occupancy, all right? But if you've been on the land before the Land Use Act, the Land Use Act is not going to dispossess you of the land. So it's said that if you can prove, and there are like 5 ways we have this statutory, this locus classicus case where the Nigerian court decided on how ownership of land can be proved.
So if through any of those 5 ways you can prove ownership of land, you're good to go. All right. So even if you have not applied for the C of O, you don't have a C of O in your name, you're deemed to have a certificate of occupancy. So it's called deemed right of occupancy. Yeah. So you can then later apply for the C of O. All right. So because it's very important. So that's why we still, although there's room for a lot of improvement, definitely. That law it was made in 1970. It's 2023.
Yes.
A lot of things have changed and everything.
Yeah.
But so what happens is we have both the native law and custom, lands and properties being held under native law and custom, and under the new regime, under the Land Use Act, where everything is documented. Right. So if you're caught up with any of this, whether you are under the post 1978, you have a relevant document, or you're before 1978, you can prove through any of those means, then you can have recourse to it. So what you should do is to talk to a lawyer, let them have all that you have with you. And so there's a procedure to it.
Absolutely.
There's a procedure. Ideally, when the governor wants to acquire land, they should notify you.
Yeah.
So they will notify you. They notify you in writing.
Yeah.
They would bring it to you. You will sign that you received it.
Yeah.
And there's a process for compensation. So you have to be paid compensation. So that's the usual procedure. That's what should be followed. But of course, that's if you can prove
that you legally and duly acquired or inherited the land or the property, and it was before the time of this new zoning law or the acquisition. If it's after, then it becomes null and void. Yeah. Because just like what you said earlier, whoever gave it to you, yes, exactly, there'll be nothing to be done. Because whoever gave it to you after the law obviously had no rights to do that.
And as the buyer, you should
have checked.
You should have checked.
Exactly.
So,
which brings us back to the due diligence that you do when you're buying.
Yes.
So if after you have acquired, you have to ensure that you actually own the rights to it.
Yes. So even after you've bought, like I've had clients that we have to do due diligence on properties that they've bought, they've even built. So, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
When you want to break the news to the client, you don't just send them the written.
No.
You have to call them, especially when it's not good news. And because, if you just drop it like, the land is acquired, God forbid, we don't have a case where someone will slump. So because I had a case like that where the person built on committed land that was already committed. So, but you can also do it. So even if you've bought land, you bought a house, and you didn't do all this, it's better now so that you can weigh your options, you can look at the risk, and you can exactly know what is going on. So you want to talk to a lawyer to check whatever you have, the documents you have, let them check for you. The root of title. So root of title is, when a tree's fruits will determine its fruits.
Yeah.
So I don't like biology so much. But you plant orange. The roots is orange. It's not going to be giving you a mango fruit or apple. If that happens, people are going to gather and burn down that tree.
Like what's going on in between that abomination? Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same thing with root of title. What I talked about. You can't give what you don't have. So we usually trace the roots.
Yeah.
So Lerato, let's say for instance, your dad gifted you a property.
Yeah.
So we can see that deed of gift from daddy to you.
Yeah.
Now, how did daddy get it? We have to trace that too. Because if there's any issue with daddy's ownership and he gives you,
he didn't own it.
Exactly. So we trace the root of title. So oftentimes when people say, I want to do due diligence, it's not just search. Because I can go to the registry, search. She said, I'll tell you, okay, so this is so number. This file, we found it. What's inside it?
Yeah, what's inside it? What's there?
So it involves reading through. And sometimes you have to do 2-3 times because we keep tracing and tracing just to be sure that there are no loopholes anywhere.
Sure.
Right? So you can also do that even after you've bought property. So if you've bought a property and you're like, I'm just hearing this for the first time, it's fine. It's something you can do. So you can assess your position and so going forward, you can know what exactly to do. But if you're watching this and you've not bought property yet, I dare say that you're very lucky. So make sure you do that.
The due diligence first before you actually get into yes. And I'd like to just remind everyone, if you're watching this and you're not sure what it is that your due diligence has to entail or what it involves, I have created a series which is talking from a realistic point of view of what due diligence should entail, what to do, how to buy property using different due diligence factors and stuff like that. But Tosin actually has a really detailed video course that talks you through everything that you should do step by step. So depending on what type of how much knowledge it is that you want to be able to have, you may want to take on that course. And if in the comments we see that a lot of people want it, then I might just be able to ask it and say, Tosin, let's see what my community can get. So please, if you know that you're interested, so we'll work out something and then we'll say, okay, if you're going to become from this community and you're watching this video, we should at least be able to get a code that would give you some form of discount on her video course, because I can tell you it is really explicit. I've seen that course and I know that if you go through this, you follow it step by step, there is no way that you're going to be able to make any form of errors in your due diligence whatsoever. You would even be telling your lawyer and say, you have to do this, and your lawyer will be like, are you telling me my work? You will literally be telling your lawyer your work, because it is what it is.
Yes.
So
I actually had someone reach out to me who bought the course. So he wanted to buy a house. So I said, okay, so this and this and this are the questions we should ask her. He said, I've done that already. I bought your course now. I'm like,
okay. Your work, your work is done.
Yes.
Just come and finish.
Yes.
So for me as a broker, I would tell my clients that there are certain things that they should track market research, track property info, track history of the property and stuff like that. You have highlighted things that somebody who has bought property should look for in terms of the due diligence. Now, from a legal perspective, what type of laws or policies is it that a property investor should look out for so that they remain knowledgeable of the things that would seem to happen? We've talked about it a lot. There are different things. You've talked about the Land Use Act. We've talked about this. But what other legal laws or policies is it that a property investor has to look out for?
Okay, so basically it will be policies.
Okay.
Current policies of the government.
Okay.
Right? Government is building some infrastructure in some place. You have to know whether it's coming to your place is going to affect you. And maybe you should, what you should do about it before it comes, if it's possible, you understand. So it's basically the policies. So you want to know what's going on in your area. Mm-hmm. And in my due diligence masterclass that she talked about, I did a short summary of the Land Use Act. I know if I say, go and read the Land Use Act, because trust me, as a lawyer myself, reading those laws can be boring.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. So I know that what you really need is the one that really relates to you. Like you don't need all the hair. Also, I did a summary of that. So you want to know basically the current policies that would affect you if you have done your due diligence before you bought. So the other legal things that would affect you, legal issues that could affect you would be current policies, because I assume that if you're already in possession of the property, and possession is very important too. So you don't buy property and just leave it, especially for those who buy land and leave it for a while because they want to sell. So even after you've done your due diligence, you have the property, you want to ensure that you are in possession and that you don't lose it.
Yeah. So
there are various ways to do that. You want to ensure you regularly visit the property. So if you buy from companies who usually have an estate, it's usually a little, it shouldn't give you so much concern, at least if there's going to be any issue to affect anything. But let's say you buy from the omoniles, like in the midst of them, then you want to make sure first that you do a fence around it and all that is very important. So possession is important. Current government policies, you want to ensure that you try and keep up with what's going on. Read the news, know what's going on in your particular state, because the Land Use Act gave the government a lot of powers when it comes to land. So you want to know what's going on in a particular state, so that if there's any policy that would affect you, you would be one of the few people to. So basically, yes, that's about it.
Yeah. And I dare say that if you are a member of the community, that you would be getting email updates, because we have a community that not only puts out videos for public consumption, but we would continually keep sharing resources, market updates, industry knowledge, industry information. So you would get some of these things as updates via email or just in your dashboard, where you'd have a library resource that you can always go back to and get all this information for free without having the headache to say, what am I supposed to be looking for? So, yes.
I'm a member of the committee.
Oh, yes, she is. She is a member of the committee.
It's one of the best things that can happen to you.
Yay.
So you should join us.
So, yes, please, take this to join us. I'm going to leave a link to, 1, a discount code to Tosin's course on due diligence. 2, I'm going to leave a link to the community so that you can also join us. And 3, I'm going to do a checklist of things that you must have based on our conversation. I'm just going to do a checklist that you will be able to download, and you can just look and see, what do I have, what don't I have for my property that is already existing. And if you take the checklist, you would also be able to get another bonus, which I'm not going to talk about in this video, but if you get the checklist, then you will get that bonus also. So we've come to the end of this discussion. And I would say that until next time, when another video drops, happy investing, people.